Good afternoon. I will be sharing an update on the recent Manoa murder investigation. Please know that some of the information will be disturbing and graphic. On Sunday, March 10th, 2024, at approximately 8:34 a.m., patrol officers were sent to 3622 Wa'aloa Place for a suspicious circumstance report of screaming in the area. Once officers arrived and searched for the 911 caller, but they could not find her. They walked up the stairs of the residence and knocked several times but received no answer. They listened for but could not hear anyone screaming or yelling. One of the officers checked with nearby residents who said that they had not heard any screaming either. The officer then requested that the caller be called back. However, the communications officer was unable to call the caller back because she had an international phone number. After checking the area around the home, the officers documented their findings and left the home shortly before 9 a.m. At 9:15 a.m., the same caller called 911 and said that she had not made contact with the police initially. The officers arrived and was able to meet with her while she was standing in front of the home. She identified herself as a tenant, and she was visibly shaken. At that time, she told the officer she was in her room when she heard screaming between 2 and 2:30 a.m. She said that she locked herself in the room and heard the screaming just outside the door. She said that she did not meet with the initial officer because she was afraid to come out of her room due to seeing blood seep under her bedroom door. Too afraid to open the door, she climbed out of her window and met with officers when she called the second time. The responding officers immediately checked the front door, which was locked. They were able to see an unresponsive person through the window. They called out to the person but received no answer. Officers entered through the back door and found the unresponsive male laying in blood in the hallway. He had stab wounds to the chest and was deceased. He was later identified as the suspect, 46-year-old Paris Oda. Officers began clearing the home, going from room to room. In the first bedroom, they found a young female deceased on the floor in a pool of blood with visible stab wounds to her leg and upper body. She was later identified as 17-year-old Sakurako Oda. When stepping over Paris Oda's body to search the other rooms in the hallway, the officers observed a kitchen knife in his right hand. In another bedroom, officers found a young male, deceased, laying in his bed with visible stab wounds to his chest area. He was later identified as 12-year-old Orion Oda. Officers followed the trail of blood to the master bedroom, where they found a deceased female child who sustained visible stab wounds to her back. The child was later identified as 10-year-old Nana Oda. On the floor, just behind the door, was a deceased adult female with stab wounds to her upper body. She was identified as 48-year-old Naoka Oda, Paris's wife. All 4 victims had defensive wounds on their hands and wrists. It is very probable that the life-threatening injuries that they sustained killed them within a few hours of the incident. There have been a lot of rumors and speculation by individuals not involved in this investigation. We are able to share the following at this time. During the course of the investigation, we have forensically examined and analyzed electronics to include cellular phones, reviewed the home surveillance, video camera recordings, and conducted interviews with family and friends. Based on this, we know the following. In the latter part of 2023, Paris Oda made it known he was struggling financially. He was behind on car payments, tuition, and loan payments. He shared with a relative that it was his responsibility to fix it. Paris shared his concerns with his wife. They made some changes, but the financial problems continued. In January of this year, Paris contacted a real estate agent to put a second property up for sale. In February, Paris' concerns increased, and he told his wife that he had not paid taxes for years. He was not getting enough patients at his chiropractor business, and he started to work as an Uber driver. In the middle of February, Paris texted his wife that they needed to plan to do it. He said he could not take it anymore, and he told her that their children needed to come with them because no one could take better care of them than he could. Naoko tried to be optimistic and encouraging with Paris. She suggested that they move to Japan with her parents, but Paris stated that he was done and too tired. Paris started to withdraw and became quiet and distant. Paris's financial distress heightened in March as the tax season approached. He told relatives that he would rather die before going to jail for unpaid taxes. At that time, he also said that he would kill his family and burn the house down. Paris unsuccessfully tried to obtain a gun around the same time. Based on the investigation so far, the motives for the 4 murders was Paris's financial distress. Our investigation is still ongoing, and we are still reviewing electronics and conducting interviews and testing evidence. And I could take a few questions at this time.
Lieutenant, may I ask first, how are the investigating officers doing?
They're doing well. They understand, it's our job, what we have to do, but at the same time, they understand that we have the resources available to them if they need to talk to somebody. Our peer support is excellent with that.
When you mentioned that Paris Oda had communicated it was time to do it, do we know the meaning of time to do it and the phrases take the children, etc.?
Yeah, in the text messages that we reviewed with different people, the time to do it was basically, he was saying that they had previously discussed taking their lives. Him, his wife, and the children.
When did he apply for the gun and on what grounds was it denied?
He never applied for the gun. He just had a message. He messaged someone requesting for a gun. That person never replied.
So as far as we can tell, Lieutenant, that it was discussed and this event, I guess, was premeditated, so to speak?
Yes.
I believe they had multiple homes. Was the realtor for this specific home or for another property?
It was a different property initially. I think in January they talked about selling it, but then in March they talked to another realtor to sell their home, the current Manoa home.
Do we know how early it was when the discussions about this began?
The evidence that we have shows that it started in late February.
What's left in the investigation to do as far as additional motives? Are there still some, because we also have heard rumors
Correct.
unsubstantiated that we have not reported. Are those being looked into? And basically what's left in the
Yeah, we've had Crime Stopper tips that came in. We've interviewed family members. We still have a lot of phones that we have to go through, computers, work computers, iPads. So this is what we can share with you at this point, and it seems to be the financial distress is the motive in this.
One thing you mentioned also was that the initial caller had an international phone. What sort of difficulty did that? Obviously, that added a difficulty, and from what I understand, one of the initial calls was made several hours before the discovery was made. So.
No, the initial caller from the 911 was at 8:34.
Gotcha. Okay.
As far as the international call, I'll defer to Major Calvin Sung from Communications. He can answer that question.
Was there a time of death from the medical examiner?
Because they were already deceased, the medical examiner makes the pronouncement. That was at 11:15 a.m.
But at that point, it was hard to say exactly when this had happened.
According to the medical examiners, when we discussed it, if based on the investigation what we have, the witness heard that the screaming and what was happening was around between 2 and 2:30. After that, she didn't hear anything. According to the medical examiner's office, based on the injuries they sustained, they would have died within a couple hours. Any other questions? I can defer to Major Song. Thank you.
Just really quick, the city, the 911 system has the ability to call back the caller. If it is a nationwide number, any other state numbers, we can call them back. But the international number, we do not have the capability at this time. But we're working with the city, so just in case we get the drop calls or callers that are using the international phone numbers, we're going to have that ability to call them back quickly. So we're working with the city, upgrading our systems.
Yeah, do other jurisdictions already have that capability, to your knowledge?
That I'm not too sure. So within the state we can, but definitely international number. And also the other problem we might have is language barrier too. So when our dispatchers call back the number, if they only speak to like a Japanese or Chinese or Korean languages, then we're gonna have some issues communicating with those callers.